Why does a $2 bottle of oil from the grocery store make every buck on your property show up on camera within a week when the $18 commercial attractant you bought last season could not pull a single one? The answer is sitting next to your stove right now, and it costs about $2 for a bottle that will last you 3 full seasons. It is store-brand vegetable oil. Canola or soybean, does not matter. Whatever is cheapest at the grocery store. The $1.89 bottle of Great Value from Walmart works exactly the same as the $6 organic cold-pressed bottle from the health food store. The deer do not have opinions about your oil's resume, and the reason it works has nothing to do with the oil attracting deer. Vegetable oil by itself is scentless to a whitetail. Deer do not care about it. They do not seek it. They walk past it. The oil is not the attractant. The oil is the delivery system. And that distinction is the single most important thing I have learned about homemade deer scent in 27 years of hunting. An old-timer on a lease in northeast Oklahoma taught me this maybe 12 years ago. He had been running a 3-ingredient paste on tree bark since the late 1980s and filling his tag every season on a piece of post oak and blackjack timber that nobody else on the lease could get a buck to commit on. His mix was 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, and 10 to 12 drops of pure vanilla extract, stirred together into a thick paste about the consistency of cake frosting. He smeared it on tree bark at chest height on a whitetail, roughly 4 feet off the ground, about 20 yards from his stand, and walked away. I watched him do it one October afternoon while we were hanging stands for a weekend hunt on his section of the lease. He spent maybe 90 seconds on the application, wiped his hands on a rag, and walked back to his truck like he had just finished a chore. I asked him if that was it. He said that is it. I asked him when he was going to refresh it. He said probably Thursday. It was Saturday. I did not believe him. By Monday morning, his trail camera had 11 deer photos, including a 3.5-year-old 8-point at 6:45 a.m. My stand, 300 yards down the same ridge with a fresh vanilla wick I had applied that same Saturday afternoon, had 3 photos. All does. All after dark. I stared at his camera and then stared at mine, and knew something fundamental was different about his setup. The only variable was the oil. Stay until the end because there is one more step he added to the mix that I did not learn until 3 seasons later, and it turns the paste from a 3-day attractant into something that keeps pulling for over a week between applications. Before you try any of this, spend 5 minutes on your state wildlife agency website. Baiting laws change by state and sometimes by county within a state. Anything a deer puts in its mouth or licks off a tree can be classified as bait under strict interpretation. And what is legal in Oklahoma may get you a fine in Michigan. 5 minutes of reading is the cheapest insurance policy in hunting. Peanut butter specifically can be classified as bait in states that define bait broadly. So, know your rules before your enthusiasm gets ahead of your common sense. The science behind why this kitchen mix outperforms every water-based commercial attractant I have tested is not complicated once you understand how scent moves through air. Every commercial deer attractant on the shelf at the pro shop, Conquest Scents, Buck Bomb, Tinks, all of them, uses a water-based or alcohol-based carrier to deliver the active scent compounds. Water evaporates. Alcohol evaporates faster. When you spray a water-based attractant on a scent wick, that is a felt or cotton strip that absorbs liquid and slowly releases it into the air. The water in the carrier begins evaporating the moment it hits the fabric. In warm, early season temperatures above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, warm enough to hunt in a t-shirt, a water-based scent wick is functionally dead within 4 to 6 hours. The scent compounds that were dissolved in the water evaporate along with the carrier and disperse into concentrations too low for a deer to detect beyond about 30 yards, roughly the distance from your front door to the mailbox. By the time you climb down at dark, the wick is dry and the scent is gone. You paid $14 for 6 hours of coverage, and tomorrow morning you will do it again. And the morning after that. And by the end of the season, your scent budget looks like a car payment and your cameras look like they are pointed at an empty parking lot. Oil does not evaporate. That is the whole secret. Vegetable oil has a boiling point above 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which means at any temperature you will ever hunt in, the oil stays liquid on the surface where you applied it. At 30 degrees on a November morning, cold enough that your breath is visible and your fingers ache on the bow grip, the oil is still a liquid film on the bark. At 70 degrees in early October, still a liquid film. The stuff does not change state in any condition you will ever encounter in the deer woods. The scent compounds dissolved in the oil, the vanillin from the vanilla extract, and the volatile roasted proteins from the peanut butter release into the air through a process called passive diffusion rather than evaporation. Passive diffusion is slower, much slower. Instead of dumping all the scent into the air in 4 to 6 hours, the oil releases it gradually over 3 to 5 days. The scent column is thinner, which means it travels further downwind before dispersing below the detection threshold. Think of it like the difference between dumping a bucket of water off a roof and letting a garden hose trickle. Same amount of water, completely different reach. The trickle hits the ground 30 feet further away because the flow rate is lower and the stream stays intact longer. Same physics, same result. Thinner scent column equals longer effective range. I ran this past a buddy who guides whitetail hunts in southern Iowa, and he just nodded and said, the best scent setups he has ever run for clients are the ones that release slow and steady, not the ones that hit hard and die fast. He said the commercial stuff is built to smell impressive when you open the bottle in the truck, not to perform for 72 hours on a tree. That one sentence changed how I think about every scent product I have ever used. Everything in this video, plus 60 more field-tested techniques, is in the Buck Hunter's Bible. 90 pages of deer behavior, science, scent control, scouting methods, stand placement, and rut phase tactics with a quick reference card you can take to the stand. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. I tested this on my own ground in southern Iowa across 2 full seasons. The first season I ran vanilla extract on cotton wicks the way most people do, straight from the bottle onto the wick, refreshed every sit. The second season, I switched to the kitchen mix, the oil and peanut butter and vanilla paste, applied to tree bark once and left for a full week between applications. Same stands, same wind patterns, same weeks of the season, same wild game innovations trail cameras on the same trees. The vanilla wick season produced an average response time, meaning the time from application to the first deer appearing on camera within 30 yards of the wick of roughly 4 hours. Decent, normal, expected. The kitchen mix season produced an average response time of roughly 90 minutes. That is not a typo. 90 minutes from application to the first deer on camera at the treated tree. And the mix was still pulling deer visits on day 4 and day 5 after application, long after the vanilla wick had gone completely cold. I do not fully understand why the response time was faster with the oil mix. My best guess is that the oil base creates a scent column that is more concentrated at source but extends further downwind. So deer at greater distances pick it up sooner. A biologist would probably explain it differently. But the camera data was consistent enough across both seasons that I stopped using straight vanilla on wicks and switched to the paste permanently. Your results on your ground with your deer density may be different. I am not pretending 2 seasons on one Iowa farm is proof of anything universal, but the pattern was consistent enough sit after sit that I trusted on my properties, and every hunter I have shared it with has reported the same general trend. Faster response, longer duration, less money. The peanut butter is doing something different than the vanilla in this mix. The vanilla provides the curiosity trigger, a volatile organic compound profile that mimics fermenting fruit on the forest floor and does not activate the deer's alarm response. If you watch the household items video, you already know that vanillin has been used by old-timers as a curiosity attractant since the 1970s. Same principle applies here. The peanut butter provides the caloric signal. Roasted peanut proteins and fats broadcast a high-energy food source signature that deer, especially pre-rut bucks building body mass and post-rut bucks recovering from the breeding chase, cannot ignore. On its own, peanut butter on a tree lasts about 24 hours before it dries out and hardens into a crust that stops releasing volatiles. Mixed into the oil, the peanut butter compounds stay suspended in liquid form and keep releasing for days. The oil is holding both the vanilla and the peanut butter in a slow-release matrix that prevents either one from burning off too fast. Without the oil, each ingredient is a one-day wonder, With the oil, the same ingredients become a 5-day system. The oil is the engine that makes both ingredients work longer and reach further. Without the oil, you have a decent attractant that dies in a day. With the oil, you have a slow release system that runs for a week. My wallet noticed the difference before the deer did. You've had that morning. You drive an hour to the property before dawn, spray down with dead downwind, climb your Millennium hang-on in the dark, sit for 5 hours, and see nothing. You climb down, check the scent wick you refreshed yesterday morning, and it is bone dry. The cotton feels like it has not had liquid on it in days. You just sat a dead stand for 5 hours because the attractant you paid for evaporated while you were sleeping. The oil paste does not do that. It is still wet on the bark 5 days after application. You can see the sheen on the tree with a flashlight. That is the visual confirmation that your scent system is still working, and it is the one thing water-based products can never give you. I cannot tell you how many mornings I climbed down from a stand, checked the bark where I had applied the paste 4 days earlier, and found it still glistening in my headlamp beam. Every time I see that sheen, I know the scent column is still active. Every time I check a dry wick on a friend's setup, I know he is hunting a dead zone and does not realize it. The application method matters as much as the mix itself. You want rough bark. Smooth bark trees like beech or young maples do not hold the paste because the oil runs off the surface. Rough bark trees like oak, hickory, pine, or mature maple have deep furrows in the bark that hold the paste in place and channel rainwater around it instead of through it. That rain resistance is critical. I cannot overstate this. If you have ever sprayed a commercial attractant on a wick and then had it rain at 2 a.m. and wondered why you saw nothing the next morning, this is why. The rain washed your $14 investment into the dirt before the first deer ever walked past it. A water-based scent washes off a tree in the first rain event. The oil paste sheds water because oil and water do not mix. I have had the paste survive 2 days of steady rain on an oak in western Maryland and still showed deer activity on camera the morning after the rain stopped. Cut a patch of bark roughly 6 inches across, about the size of your hand with fingers spread, at chest height on the tree. Smear the paste into the bark furrows using a plastic knife or a stick. Do not use your bare hands because the human skin, oils, and bacteria on your fingers will contaminate the paste with human scent and shift the deer's interpretation from curiosity to alarm. Carry the paste in a sealed jar and apply with a clean utensil. 1 application per tree, 1 tree per stand site. Do not overdo it. More paste does not mean more deer. The deer's nose is sensitive enough that a 6-inch patch of paste is more than sufficient to create a scent column that reaches 100 yards downwind on a calm morning, the length of a football field. A larger application just concentrates the scent too much at the source and creates the same suspicion problem I mentioned with the temperature inversion. 15 to 25 yards from your stand, roughly the distance from the pitcher's mound to home plate. The limitation you need to know is temperature inversion. On mornings when the air temperature at ground level is colder than the air 20 to 30 feet up, which happens frequently during calm, clear October mornings, a temperature inversion forms and scent gets trapped near the ground instead of rising and dispersing normally. During an inversion, the oil paste slow release advantage turns into a disadvantage because the scent pools in a concentrated layer right at the application site instead of spreading out on a thermal. Deer walking through that concentrated pool at nose height sometimes react with suspicion rather than curiosity because the scent density is unnaturally strong for a food source. I lost 2 consecutive morning sits on an NE Minnesota property to exactly this problem before I figured out what was happening. Both mornings I had deer come within 50 yards and then stop, heads up, noses working, and turn away without approaching the paste tree. The third morning, I checked the conditions and realized the ground temperature was 28 degrees with dead calm air, and the inversion was sitting like a lid on the timber. I should have caught it sooner. That is a lesson I paid for with 2 wasted morning sits and a long cold drive home both days. The scent was pooling at application height instead of dispersing upward. The fix is to apply the paste higher on the tree during early season when inversions are common. Move it up to about 6 feet, roughly the height of a standard interior door, so the scent releases above the inversion layer and disperses normally on the rising thermals once the sun starts warming the ground. The step I promised at the beginning is the one detail that turned this from a decent attractant into something I run on every property I hunt. The old-timer in NE, Oklahoma did not tell me this part until I had been running the basic 3-ingredient paste for 3 full seasons and getting good results. He waited because he said he wanted to make sure I was serious before he gave me the real version. That is an old-timer move if I have ever seen one. Test the kid for 3 years and then hand him the actual recipe. I cannot even be mad about it. He earned that right by running the system for decades before I ever set foot on his lease. After mixing the oil, peanut butter, and vanilla, he added 1 tablespoon of corn syrup, stirred it in, and then let the entire jar sit sealed on a shelf in his garage for 72 hours before using it. During those 72 hours, the sugar in the corn syrup begins a slow fermentation reaction with the trace moisture in the peanut butter, and the resulting byproducts, tiny amounts of ethanol and acetic acid, create a fermentation scent profile that mimics rotting fruit on the forest floor. That fermentation layer is the final piece. It shifts the paste from a simple food curiosity signal to a complex natural scent that deer interpret as a food source that has been sitting in the woods for days. Fresh food scent makes deer cautious because it implies something just showed up. Fermented food scent makes deer confident because it implies the source has been there long enough to be safe. That 3-day fermentation window is the difference between pulling a doe and pulling a mature buck. Look, everything I am walking through here is in the Buck Hunter's Bible. 90 pages, scent control, scouting, stand placement, rut tactics, plus a quick reference card for the stand. Link in the description, QR code on screen. I tested the fermented version against the fresh version on a buddy's lease in Western Maryland, and the fermented paste pulled roughly 30% more buck visits, specifically bucks 2.5 years and older, across a 6-week camera test. Not a huge sample, not science, but consistent enough that I ferment every batch now and would not go back to the fresh version. The fermented paste has a slightly sour smell that reminds me of overripe apples sitting in a ditch. It does not smell appetizing to a human nose. My wife made me keep the jars in the garage after the first batch because the kitchen smelled like a cider press had an accident. But the deer response on camera is measurably better than the fresh version, and at this point, I trust the cameras more than I trust my own nose. The old-timer was right. He was right about everything. A jar of store-brand vegetable oil costs about $2. A jar of store-brand peanut butter costs about $1. A small bottle of pure vanilla extract costs about $1 to $3, depending on size. A bottle of corn syrup costs about $2. The total investment for a season's worth of kitchen mix paste comes to roughly $6 to $8. A single bottle of commercial attractant at the pro shop runs $14 to $22 and lasts maybe 3 or 4 applications. Over 20 seasons, the commercial route costs you somewhere in the range of $600 to $900. The kitchen mix costs you maybe $120 to $160 across the same 20 years. Think about that. $500 or more. On scent compounds your grocery store has been selling for a fraction of the price your entire hunting career. Nobody lied to you. They just sold you the right molecules in the wrong delivery system and charged you a premium for the privilege. The deer never cared about the label. They never cared about the camo packaging. They cared about the molecule. And the molecule in a $2 bottle of store-brand canola is the same molecule that makes a $22 attractant paste stick to a tree and release scent for a week. One is sold in the cooking aisle. The other is sold in the hunting aisle. The deer cannot tell the difference. Your wallet can. The commercial scent industry built a business model around convincing you that the delivery system matters less than the active ingredient. They are wrong. The delivery system is the whole game. Every attractant on the shelf contains compounds that work on deer. The reason 59% of hunters go home empty every season is not that the compounds failed. It is that the compounds evaporated before the deer showed up. The oil fixes that. $2, 1 bottle. 1 season to prove it to yourself. The next time you walk past the cooking oil in the grocery store, grab a bottle. Mix it with what is already in your pantry. Let it sit for 3 days. Smear it on an oak tree 20 yards from your stand. Walk away. Do not come back to check it for 5 days. And when your hunting buddy asks why your cameras are full and his are empty, that is your call whether you tell him it started with a $2 bottle from aisle 7. The old-timer in NE, Oklahoma, never told a soul on that lease for 30 years. I asked him why. He said because the minute you tell someone something works, they tell everyone. And then the deer on the property start associating the scent with human pressure, because every hunter on the lease is smearing the same paste on the same trees every weekend. He kept it quiet because he understood that the best scent system in the world stops working when every tree on the property smells like it. Use it selectively. Use it on your best stands only. And keep it to yourself until the cameras speak for themselves.